Before we even talk about the footage itself, before we talk about who swung first or what the clip actually shows, you need to understand one thing very clearly. Because without this context, none of what just went viral is going to make sense. This situation did not start with the fight. It did not start with a diss record, and it definitely did not start with this clip. What people are seeing right now is the final spark on a fuse that's been burning quietly for years. And the reason this clip is blowing up the way it is, the reason it feels uncomfortable, messy, and way more real than a normal rap beef, is because this isn't just about music anymore. This is about loyalty, ego, embarrassment, and two artists who were once genuinely cool, finally reaching a point where words weren't enough. And yeah, the footage allegedly shows Blueface getting physical with NLE Choppa, but the real story is everything that happened before that moment. So let's rewind, because people have short memories. There was a time when Blueface and NLE Choppa weren't enemies, weren't throwing shots, and definitely weren't talking about fighting each other in real life. They were cool. Industry cool, yes, but still cool. They collaborated, they spoke off camera, and they moved like artists who respected each other's lane. And more importantly, Blueface was already established when Choppa was still coming up. Blueface was already viral, already controversial, already the guy people either loved or loved to hate, but either way, he was known. And according to Blueface himself, he didn't just know Choppa, he helped him. He said multiple times that he brought Choppa around, put him in rooms, introduced him to people, and treated him like someone he genuinely rocked with, not just another industry acquaintance. And here's a detail that keeps coming up when Blueface tells this story. He says Choppa used to FaceTime him with girls just to flex the relationship, just to say, "Look, I know Blueface." Now that might sound small, but that detail matters, because in Blueface's mind, that means you weren't just colleagues, you were benefiting from the association. So when time passed, careers shifted, and public perception changed, Blueface expected one thing: not defense, not public loyalty, not even support, just neutrality. And that's where everything started to go wrong. Because as Blueface's controversy stacked up and the internet started treating him more like a meme than an artist, the energy around him shifted. And according to him, that's when certain people started acting different. Calls stopped coming in, features stopped being offered, people stopped checking in. But even that, he says, is something he could have accepted. What he couldn't accept was people he once helped stepping out of their body and speaking on his personal life publicly. That's where NLE Choppa comes back into this story. At some point, Choppa began commenting on situations involving Blueface online, siding with narratives, reacting to headlines, and engaging with moments that had nothing to do with music. And from Blueface's perspective, that was crossing a line, because in his mind, if we were once cool, if you once benefited from my presence, you don't get to jump into my mess when the blogs turn up. You either mind your business or you pick a side. And picking a side publicly is where respect gets lost. That's when Blueface mentally checked out of the friendship. And once that switch flips for him, it doesn't flip back. Now fast forward again, and this is where tension really starts to build. NLE Choppa drops music that includes subtle shots. Nothing super direct, nothing that screams diss record, but enough for Blueface to hear it and feel like it wasn't accidental. And instead of responding with a track, instead of playing the normal rap game, Blueface does what he always does. He talks. He goes live, and that live stream is where everything escalated. Because Blueface didn't just critique the song or question the bars, he mocked Choppa, he called him cute, he joked about baby oil, he leaned into internet rumors and turned the entire situation from competitive rap energy into personal disrespect. And whether people like it or not, that's when the tone shifted completely. Because bars are one thing, mockery is another. Once you start clowning someone's image and masculinity, the situation stops being about music and starts being about pride. And Blueface made it clear how he took it. He said the diss gave him an angle to press for the fade. That wasn't metaphorical. That wasn't rap talk. That was real life language. And if you follow Blueface long enough, you know he doesn't separate online talk from offline consequences. When he says he's willing to fight, he's not talking about Twitter fingers or Instagram captions. He means hands. Now here's where things get even messier, because this wasn't even the first time fighting came up between them. NLE Choppa had previously talked about wanting to box Blueface, celebrity boxing, Vegas, the whole rollout. So when Blueface responded with, "Finally we got one," he wasn't joking. He was basically saying, "You asked for this, now stand on it." But instead of real negotiations, things stayed chaotic. Flyers started circulating without contracts. Websites popped up without approval. No official talks, no real agreement. From Choppa's side, it felt rushed and manipulative. From Blueface's side, it felt like someone backing out. And when trust is already gone, every move gets interpreted the worst possible way. And that's how situations like this spiral. Now we get to the footage. The clip that's going viral right now isn't clean, polished, or staged. It looks raw, it looks uncomfortable, and most importantly, it looks real. People online are saying it shows Blueface physically confronting NLE Choppa, possibly jumping him, possibly catching him off guard. Others are saying it's being exaggerated. But here's the thing, whether this was a full-on jumping or a brief altercation doesn't even matter at this point. Because once physicality enters the situation, the narrative changes permanently. There's no undo button for that. No PR spin. No, it was just content. And that's why this clip hit the way it did. Because Blueface has been warning people about this outcome for a long time. He said repeatedly that he doesn't do industry games, that he doesn't view beef as entertainment, and that if someone disrespects him in a certain way, he's willing to deal with it face to face. So while casual fans might be shocked, people who've been listening aren't surprised. Now the internet is split. Some people are saying this proves NLE Choppa was never really about that life. Others are saying Blueface took it way too far. And some are saying the entire situation is unnecessary and embarrassing for both sides. But the truth is, this was always heading somewhere ugly, because these are two very different personalities. Choppa is seen as someone who moves with trends, phases, and internet energy. Blueface is stubborn, confrontational, and unapologetic. Those two energies were never going to coexist peacefully forever. And here's the part nobody is really talking about yet, but it matters more than the clip itself. Because once that footage hit the internet, the conversation stopped being about who's right and who's wrong, and it instantly turned into perception, reputation, and survival in a space where image is currency. For Blueface, this moment fits into a pattern he's been living in for years now. He's always been the guy people say is crashing out, moving reckless, or sabotaging himself. But from his point of view, he doesn't see it as crashing out at all. He sees it as standing on principles in an industry where most people fold the second the pressure changes. That's why he keeps repeating the same message in different ways. When I was hot, everybody loved me. Everybody respected me. Everybody wanted to be around me. When things slowed down, the same people started acting funny, started distancing themselves, started talking like spectators instead of participants. And in his mind, once you cross from participant to commentator, you're no longer neutral. That's a big reason why this situation didn't stay online. Because to Blueface, what Choppa did wasn't just commentary, it was opportunism. It was jumping into a trending narrative instead of staying out of something that didn't involve him. And when you combine that with the fact that they had history, had worked together, and had real conversations off camera, it hits different. This is where the emotional part comes in. Blueface has said before that he didn't come into the industry understanding how transactional everything is. He didn't grow up in that system. He didn't have OGs sitting him down explaining that most of these relationships aren't real friendships. They're temporary alignments based on momentum. So when he calls someone a brother, he actually means it. And when that illusion breaks, he doesn't process it quietly. He reacts. Now flip the camera to Choppa's side for a second, because this isn't as one-sided as the internet wants it to be. Choppa has always been someone who speaks on things publicly, whether that's social issues, personal growth, spirituality, or industry drama. That's part of his brand. He engages with conversation, he reacts, he shares opinions. So, from his perspective, commenting on a situation might not feel like betrayal. It might feel like honesty or even growth. But the problem is, honesty without context can look like disloyalty to someone who feels exposed. And that's where the disconnect lives. Choppa is operating like a public figure in a social media era. Blueface is operating like someone who still believes respect is handled privately. Those two mindsets are oil and water. So, where does this leave things? Right now, it leaves a lot of unanswered questions. Does this escalate further, or does it quietly die down? Does either side address the footage directly, or do they let speculation run wild? And most importantly, does either of them actually gain anything from this in the long run? Because moments like this don't just go away. They get clipped, replayed, and referenced forever. And whether people want to admit it or not, this moment will follow both of them for a long time. So when you watch that footage again, don't just look at what happened in those few seconds. Look at everything that led up to it. Because this wasn't random. This was years of tension finally spilling over, and once something like that happens, there's no pretending it didn't. This is one of those moments where the internet moves on fast, but the consequences move slow. And however this ends, it's already changed the story for both of them.